being aware of your own body and your own breathing is a way to just kind of center yourself and come back to the moment, especially if you notice your mind kind of racing or getting anxious about whatever's going on. Just trying to find that inner calm if you can, and hold on to your core sense of self. It's something that requires practice, though. I don't think it comes automatically. It's something that comes from repeatedly being exposed to difficult situations and having to cope with them.
You're tuned in to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast, where compassion inspires action. Together, we're building a world centered in understanding, empathy, and courageous action, starting right here in the heart of Southern Nevada. We're taking the principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you to heart. Now, let's welcome a man committed to fostering compassion in every corner of our city, a beacon of compassion in Las Vegas, your host, Will Rucker.
Welcome to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm Will Rucker, and I am so excited for today's program. You are in store for such a treat. This is our guest's very first time joining the podcast, and she's got a lot of amazing things going on that are sure to inspire you, to inform you, and give you some hope. So without further delay, let's welcome none other than Dr. Debra Hendrickson to the podcast. Hi, Debra.
Hi, Will. Thank you for inviting me.
I am so glad we got you on, and you have this fantastic book, The Air They Breathe, and it's on a really fascinating subject of climate change and kids.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into that, but before we do, tell our audience just a little bit about you and your background and what brings you on the podcast today.
Yeah, so I'm a pediatrician in Reno, which is the fastest warming city in the United States. And I've been a pediatrician here for close to 20 years. But before I was a pediatrician, I was an environmental analyst and planner. So I had a background in environmental science. And when the smoke crises started to strike Reno a little over a decade ago, when we started to be just engulfed in smoke regularly every late summer and fall from the mega fires in California, it really struck me that, my two careers were kind of coming together because I was seeing the health impacts of climate change on children. And that's what led me eventually to write the book about all the different impacts that we're seeing.
Yeah, wow. And smoke is new to me. So I'm originally from the Midwest, Motown, Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
And for most of my life, smoke actually was not a thing there. Recently, they've actually experienced it, so it's spreading. But coming to Vegas, I was out for a walk and I said, why does it hurt to breathe? And it was because of the fires over in California. So this is a very real and relevant subject for us here. Before we kind of dive into that, I'd like to set a foundation for our conversation, and that's with getting an understanding of what compassion means to you. So how do you define compassion, and how did you come to that definition?
Uh, to me, is compassion is really being present with someone and giving them, your whole heart and attention, and doing what you can to care for them. And it's part of my job every day with both children and parents. So it's something that I have to practice every day. But I think it also involves compassion for ourselves and for people we're often annoyed with or having trouble with, taking that step back and just being in the moment, and thinking about the struggles that everyone around us is having that we may not be aware of.
Mm, I love that. I really love that. Just being present, I think, is such an important thing to do. How do you stay present in your field where you have some challenging moments for sure, some great ones I would hope as well, but how do you stay present even in those difficulties?
Yeah, I think being aware of your own body and your own breathing is a way to just kind of center yourself and come back to the moment, especially if you notice your mind kind of racing or getting anxious about whatever's going on. Just trying to find that inner calm if you can, and hold on to your core sense of self. It's something that requires practice, though. I don't think it comes automatically. It's something that comes from repeatedly being exposed to difficult situations and having to cope with them. So it's just a pattern that you develop over time through practice, and it's not always perfect. and in those moments you have to forgive yourself as well.
Yeah. I think self-compassion, self-forgiveness is something we don't really share enough about, but it's so important. And I think it is a skill that you develop like any skill, like playing the piano or playing the violin or learning to practice medicine, right?
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think our brains have a tendency to race and be anxious and think about all kinds of things, especially today with all, social media and so many distractions. And it's something I talk to kids about too, because there's so many of them struggle with distraction. So it's just a good habit to get into, to take those moments and just, what does it feel like to sit in this chair right now? What does it feel like to breathe? And just pay attention to what the other person is experiencing, not just what's going on in your own head.
And we're talking about the book that is titled The Air They Breathe. So let's get into some of that. Are you noticing that kids are concerned about the climate? And if so, what can we do to help with that?
Yeah, so especially teenagers, I would say, younger children, not so much. But for a lot of teens, it's right below the surface. They don't always bring it up on their own, but sometimes they will, especially if we're having, really hot days or really smoky days. Or if I ask them about their future, I tell the story in the book of one girl who we were having a perfectly nice conversation about what she wanted to do with her future. And she just started talking about this and being very emotional because she had done a project on global warming with the local university. And so it's definitely there for a lot of kids, not all of them, but it's a big stressor for a lot of teens looking toward their future and trying to decide what kind of world they're going to be living in. And I think what we need to do for them is all of us show that we're willing to do something about the issue and helping them to find actions they can take too. I think action is the antidote to despair, and it not only helps do something about the problem, but it helps lift our mood, and just give us a sense of purpose and even optimism sometimes if you can just see other people joining together with you and working toward a problem that a lot of people care about.
That's such a great quote. Action is the antidote. Oh my goodness, I love it. Let's because I don't want to talk around the subject. I want to get into it and get some real um clear understanding of what climate change is, how it's affecting us right here in Nevada, and what's at stake for us. So if you could just give us a little background on that part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reno is the number one fastest warming city in the United States, and Las Vegas right now is number two. So we're being impacted a lot by rising temperatures. Reno didn't start off as a very hot place. Las Vegas, of course, did. So you're already down there seeing, very high temperatures like you did this summer. For us, a really hot week is when it hits 100, but we're having more and more of those summers when we're having 100 streaks of 100-degree days, which when I first moved here about 30 years ago was just unheard of. And so temperature and heat illness is one big risk that we face here in Nevada. And then air quality is the other big one we're seeing. And as I said, in Reno, that's probably our biggest impact is the smoke that rolls through. We're less affected by natural disasters themselves, like hurricanes and fires, although, Nevada could experience wildfires. We just don't have the forests, the Sierras are pretty much in California, so we're just downwind of them. But people from other parts of the country who are being affected move here. I tell the story in the book of a girl who survived Hurricane Katrina who came here and then went back to Houston and her house was affected by Hurricane Harvey. So people move around, and so we're going to see people trying to escape some of the regions of the country that are experiencing other types of climate crises, disasters. And then there's also issues like infectious diseases. I talk a bit about mosquito-borne illnesses and how one of the mosquitoes that carries a lot of diseases, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, was first found in Las Vegas during the Zika crisis. Right after. So these mosquitoes are spreading, and there's other infectious disease risks that we're seeing because of climate change that are going to affect everywhere in the country.
This year is the first year that I recall ever having to deal with mosquitoes in Las Vegas.
Mm.
And it was so strange. I mean, we always had to be water smart and make sure we weren't a breeding ground. But this year, it's almost as if someone just took a bucket of mosquitoes and dumped it on us because they
Yeah.
were very, very prevalent. And I remember coming here as a kid, and I've been in Las Vegas now a little over 10 years and love it. This is home. This is where I'm staying, even if mosquitoes come. But when I was a kid, that was one of the cool things coming here. I was like, oh, there are no mosquitoes. I don't have to worry about it. Because at home, that was just common. We just had them everywhere. But that I think linking that with the climate change is something that people don't often do. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so every species of every animal on Earth has a range of temperature, rainfall, and conditions that they thrive in. And so there are thousands of species of mosquitoes, but only a few of them carry disease. And some of the disease-carrying species are benefiting from rising temperatures and changes in rainfall patterns. So the one I just mentioned, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, carries dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. And as the temperatures are rising, it's maturing faster and breeding sooner and surviving longer. So you're seeing populations of these mosquitoes rise. And they're also becoming more hyperactive. So they're flying further and resting less and biting more people. So they're spreading disease more. And the virus actually moves from the mosquito's gut to its salivary glands faster. So, and doubles faster in the mosquito. So all these things combined increase the risk of them spreading disease in any community that they inhabit. The other thing that's really helping this mosquito, it's very adapted to urban environments. So as we're developing areas, it loves being around human beings. It can breed in like a bottle cap tossed out on the street and bits of garbage on the street, any rain or irrigation water that collects in these little spots. So because of that, the combination of it loving urban environments, which are increasing, and loving the warmer temperatures, it's a growing risk.
The size of a bottle cap, it can breed in a pool of water that small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not all species could do that, but that one is, that's what makes it so dangerous. And that's one of the reasons that dengue is spreading so rapidly around the world, because it carries dengue.
And what is dengue?
It's a virus that's carried by the mosquito. And so the mosquito's transmitting the virus, kind of like an airplane transports us from city to city. The mosquito's transporting the virus from person to person and infecting everyone it bites. And it
Okay.
causes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask for exactly where you're going. What are the symptoms? What does it cause?
Yeah, there are different strains of it, and typically it's this when you've been infected by more than one strain that you get the most serious impacts. Severe dengue involves, high fever and deep bony pain. It's called break-bone fever because it's a very painful illness, and you get leakage of fluid from the blood vessels and a sudden drop in blood pressure. So it can be very dangerous, especially for small children, because they don't have the same blood volume as an adult, and they're more susceptible to having serious effects and being hospitalized because of it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just sounds super pleasant. Like, the stuff dreams are made of for sure.
Right, right.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it is serious, and I make light of it only because it is so serious. Um, Moving more into air quality and particularly how that impacts young people with asthma or other lung conditions. We just came out of a major respiratory pandemic, and people are now a little bit more aware of their lung health. What are some of the things folks can do at home when air quality is bad so that kids can still play, they can still enjoy life, but they're not affected or as impacted by poor air quality?
Yeah, so one thing you want to do is if you have your own home, if you have central air conditioning, get what's called a MERV 13 filter. That is one of the highest grade filters that'll take particulates out of the air. If you can afford it, a freestanding air filter that are, you can get them over Amazon that just can further reduce the pollution in each room. Parents should have an app for their phone that gives them the air quality for the day and tells them if it's over 100, the kids should probably stay indoors. They can also, if the kids are willing to, wear an N95 mask outside if the pollution's bad, but that's not very pleasant for very long. You can also put baby covers over, fabric covers over the baby car seats that can help protect them since they can't wear masks. So those are a few of the things you can do. But if the air quality is really bad, the kids should probably be indoors. There is a place here in Reno that has started having indoor sports practices for, when the air quality is bad, they have filters and things that can help with that. And we'll probably, if this problem continues, we'll probably be seeing more of that opportunities for kids to play indoors that have good filters. And if I could go back just a bit, Will, on the mosquito issue, I just want to tell you there's things parents can do about that as well. You can use, of course, a mosquito repellent. It should have up to 30% DEET, which is the most effective repellent for mosquitoes, or something called picaridin. And you can wear, the screens on your house should be intact. So if you open the windows, they can't get in. And you can avoid certain times of the day when they're more likely to bite, and things like that. So there are things we can do to reduce mosquitoes. And most places in the United States most counties have mosquito control programs where they are constantly monitoring and looking for these diseases and issuing alerts. So we would know if something's around and that we needed to take precautions.
Thanks for sharing that because that's important too. We don't want them out there getting eaten up by the mosquitoes either. And so I think we will see a lot more indoor play areas and sports areas because of both, because of the heat and because we have to be just aware of what's happening outdoors with air quality, with mosquitoes and other critters that exist. I really want to hear about what motivated you to get into this work. The subtitle, I guess, of the book is A Pediatrician on the Front Lines of Climate Change. That to me is a very bold statement. And I'm curious, what drove you, what compelled you to take on this fight?
It was really, as I said, when the smoke crisis started hitting here. But one of the features of my job every day is that babies and small children look me in the face. And, if you've been around small children, they always have this expression, of complete innocence, but also like kind of looking at you to see whether or not they can trust you and that they're safe. And, when this one little girl did that during this major fire we had about 10 years ago, I just really felt like a blow to my chest, like guilty and angry that she was having to face this, because I think this really is more than anything a crime against children, that we're allowing the world to continue to be affected this way by these fuels when we have so many alternatives. If we just all really focused on this the way we focused on winning World War II or some other, major crisis, like came together as a society and battled it, because we could still prevent so much of what's predicted, if we don't act that way. So it was just a real sense of, I guess, moral outrage and that I needed to do something to try to help the kids that I was taking care of every day.
Hmm. And for the folks that still struggle to recognize climate change is real, those that maybe are taking action, say, let's use more fossil fuels, let's not move towards cleaner energy. The profit margin is the most important thing. For those kind of folks, what would you say to them?
I would say that economically, the benefits of renewable energy far outweigh those of fossil fuels if you account for all the costs of fossil fuels, the health costs, the environmental costs, what's coming if we don't make this change. And to back up a little bit, this is just the laws of physics. Every time you drive your car, the emissions from that drive are going to be over our heads for hundreds of years. So we've added and added to this blanket over the earth. And that's just the science of it. And it's preventing the heat that's reaching the earth from reflecting back out into space. So it's just accumulating and accumulating. And the cost of that, if we don't do anything about that and stop that from getting worse, is going to outweigh any other costs. So it's just, and really, I think if people just look around and think about their own childhoods and what they were able to enjoy as a kid and how things have changed, especially out here in the West. I have so many parents tell me, we used to do this, we used to do that. And it's just, I know, I don't remember ever having this much smoke or having to worry about the heat. And, I think all of us, if you're old enough, can remember that even in the last 10, 20 years, there's been a dramatic change. And that's just the evidence of your own eyes. So, and also the new technologies, even if fossil fuels were not causing climate change, they cause so many health problems around the world. We know that like kids who grow up in very polluted neighborhoods have smaller stunted lungs, and a lot of the pollutants reach their brain and affect their learning and cognition. There's so many bad effects to these fuels, which we could overcome by just switching to clean technologies, which are so available to us now. Even if you don't believe in climate change, there are so many benefits to getting off of these fuels that I hope that it will start to convince parents, all of whom, care about their kids' health and put them in car seats, brush their teeth, take them for checkups. This too is a really important thing for all of our kids' health.
That's a great way to frame it. It's that common humanity. Hey, remember when we were young, what we could do? And now we can't. Like that really resonates. And it's non-confrontational. It doesn't place blame or make anyone feel like they're a villain for how they feel. It's just saying, hey, let's look at this together.
Right, right. And I take care of families from ranches in the Great Basin Desert to immigrant families who are working in the casinos to wealthy folks from Lake Tahoe, and everybody cares about their children. People don't love their children more or less based on political party. And I just hope that this is something we can all come together over because we all love the outdoors. So I just hope we can all come together and act on behalf of the next generation.
So, Deborah, what gives you hope?
I would say that much as a lot, like I said, for the teenagers, what gives me hope is doing things to try to help and communicating with other people who feel the same way. So I'm part of a big group of pediatricians across the country trying to work on this issue. I belong to a group of physicians here in Nevada who are trying to change policy here in the state to move us to a more sustainable future. So I think all of those steps help, and also just the love that parents have for their kids and the love a lot of us have for each other. That is something I think we should all tap into and use as fuel in this fight. So I look to those things when I'm really feeling down about the state of this fight.
It goes kind of to your earlier quote about the action piece. I really see that as a consistent thing. And if you had a magic wand and could take action and you could use it to do anything your heart desires, your imagination could create, what would that be?
Oh, I would just, convert all our energy grid to renewables right now so that there wouldn't be any more carbon added to the atmosphere. Stopping carbon pollution is the number one thing we have to do.
I probably could have guessed that, right? I was watching a news story. I think it was John Oliver, as a matter of fact. And so that you know, the way that I get my news is through comedians. I have to have a little levity, and it just that helps me to that helps me to stay up. But he was talking about how the deep sea is now producing oxygen from metals, and they're calling it, like, I think, dark oxygen. Have you heard anything about that?
I saw the articles. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, so that gives me hope that our planet itself is creating new ways to help sustain life and to overcome some of the damage that we as a species has caused. I've also read about the bacteria that are now eating the plastics to kind of combat it. So I feel as though there is a bright future for us. And if we take the necessary actions, then we can certainly avoid the crisis that is looming and very large in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message that, we are human beings are really clever, and we've come up with amazing solutions to all kinds of problems through history. And the science shows that if we actually put our mind to it and stopped carbon pollution, the Earth would stop warming in 3 to 5 years. That's what the current models show. So it's this, it's by no means a hopeless situation. We just all have to get on it right now.
Wow, I didn't know that. 3 to 5 years, if we get this under control, we can stop the warming.
Right.
That's
Right.
tangible. That's doable.
Right. Right. And that's why not doing anything is so frustrating and tragic. It's like it's not that we're not doing anything, but not doing anything fast enough. We just need to speed up the pace at which we're making these changes.
Absolutely. So as we come to our last few minutes together, I'm going to start a sentence and I want you to finish it with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. The greatest thing in the world is
Oh, small children, being with the kids, the love of a small child.
the light of my life is
Oh, my granddaughter, which kind of fits the first answer. Yeah.
beautiful. Love is
Ah, love is acting for others, protecting and acting for those we love. Yeah, acting for others.
what really matters is
Uh, the future we leave our children.
I'm here because
I want to say I did everything I could to bring a better future for my granddaughter.
I love it.
Yeah.
And this one's just a little different, but I want you to write the legacy you want to leave in just a sentence.
Her advocacy resulted in lower carbon emissions from the state of Nevada. I don't know. So,
No, that's perfect. And I love that it's almost like a SMART goal, the way that you framed
yeah,
it.
something measurable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Goodness gracious. I love it. Well, I so appreciate you taking time to have this conversation today. Certainly, there's so much more that we could talk about, but I want to encourage everyone to get your book. It is a great read and so much information. You talk a lot about the mosquitoes too, but you make it accessible. And I think it's something that we could all benefit from just knowing a little bit more about. So, how do people get in touch? How do they contact you? How do they learn more?
Um, you can go to my website, debrahendrickson.com, and there's a resource page for parents that I'm working on, and you can also find links to the books and to reviews of the book.
Perfect. And that was debrahendrickson.com, and they can order the book there as well.
There's link. You can order it on Amazon or any of the major book sites or on the Simon & Schuster site. Yeah.
Perfect. And for my last close is just what's the one action step you'd encourage folks to take today?
I would say if you can go to the NV Energy site and look at the green energy program and see if you can switch to, I don't know if this is in Southern Nevada yet. It's in Northern Nevada, and I know they were planning to expand it. You can switch your house to all green energy electricity with just a couple clicks of the mouse, or 50% if the 100% is a little too expensive. So that's an option for those who can afford it. It wasn't very much the last time I looked. It was under $2 a month for me at my house. So, but it's something you can do right away to reduce your carbon emissions without doing anything to your home or having any big effort.
I definitely will look into that because I didn't even know getting to 50% was an option. I do have solar, so I'm saving the world one light switch at a time that way.
That's
But
that's great. Yeah, yeah. If we switch to electric cars and make our homes all renewable, that's like 60% of most people's carbon emissions right there. So,
well, you're making me feel real good because I drive an electric vehicle too. So
all right, excellent.
okay, one more quick story before I let you go. When I was a kid, that had to be elementary school, and my grandmother was a science teacher. Back in Michigan, we had ozone action days. And on those days, you weren't supposed to gas up the cars. And this is before the electric vehicles were popular and all of that. So my science teacher grandmother decides that we're going to go to the gas station. I was so upset with her for it. I'm like, it's an ozone action day. We're not supposed to do this. And there just so happened to be a news crew. And I don't know how they found me or I found them, but they interviewed me on the evening news. And I got to tell the world about my science teacher grandmother who was filling up her car on Ozone Action Day, even though she knows better. So that's how long I've been in climate advocacy.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a good story.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. This has been Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm Will Rucker. And as I always remind you, you are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And what you do matters. So live compassionately. And let's reduce your carbon footprint while we're at it. I'll see you next time.